welcome to the Lighter Side Show, where we embrace the journey to healthier and happier life. I am your host, Susan, and we are thrilled to announce today a free community event that brings women together every last Tuesday of every month at Stories Coffee on 114th Street. So ladies, let's grab a cup of coffee and tea and let's unite in health. For today, we have an extraordinary individual with us. It's someone who has not only transformed his own life, but is here to inspire us. And joining us in the studio is Ron Scribner. Welcome, Ron.
Well, thank you. It's great to be here.
I am so excited that you're here today because I had found out that you had lost over 100 pounds. And I know there's a story there. And I want to inspire our audience on how did this happen? What's your story? What got you to this point? And I just kind of want to dive in. So let's start from the beginning. What you had mentioned when we were talking before, that in Colorado you were over 300 pounds, correct?
Mm-hmm. Right.
So why don't we? What happened? What's going on?
Well, it was a lifetime of poor choices as far as you know. I didn't know they were poor choices at the time, but now I realize what I was doing that was really destroying my body and my life and this type of thing.
So when you say poor choices, like give a couple examples. So what do you mean poor choices?
When I went away to college as a young teenager, and I got an apartment, all I ate was pizza and cheese sandwiches and
a lot of college students do, yeah.
Soda and all that. And I started to put on weight then, even in college. Mm-hmm. I was probably 30 pounds heavier by the end of college than I was at the beginning of college. Mm-hmm. And then I got married when I was 22, and I was about 30 pounds overweight by that time.
And I heard your wife makes some pretty mean oatmeal cookies.
Oh, fabulous! She wasn't that much of a cook early in life. But when she became a grandmother, she said, well, grandmothers have to bake, and she started learning how to bake, and she's a fabulous cook now.
Oh,
and
yeah,
that's the problem. And you talk about anything, but her oatmeal cookies are, I used to take them to school, and the teachers would fight over them and steal them and take them back to their rooms. And
these were constantly in front of you all the time.
Yes, and I just thought, so what? This is great, tastes good, and she still has a knack for making that type of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
that had to take a lot of discipline, though, to say when you had decided, okay, I need to lose some weight. What made that decision for you to, okay, I've got to step this up? And
well, several things. Number one, I was diagnosed as diabetic,
mm-hmm.
Type 2 diabetic,
mm-hmm.
and that was coming on. And they kept telling me, you're pre-diabetic, and I didn't change anything.
And when you were pre-diabetic, why didn't you change anything? Because you weren't experiencing symptoms? You're just like, I can take some meds?
I never had real bad symptoms with it, or
Okay.
any symptoms at first, that I could tell. It was a surprise to me that I was diagnosed that way. And I just was weak. I just, didn't want to change. And
weak meaning mentally weak or
yeah,
discipline
mentally
weak?
Okay. No, mentally weak as far as taking control of my life. And for years, this was 10 years ago when I was pre-diabetic, and then gradually just worked my way into regular diabetes. Yeah. And then I had relatives. I had a terrible family history of heart disease, mm-hmm. and my dad died at 47, his brother died at 47, his other brother lived to be 60 with a heart transplant.
Wow.
Since that time, I've had a bunch of cousins that have passed away from heart disease and this type of thing. So that's what I was more worried about, and but I still didn't do anything about it. It's just it was easier to just live the way I had been, and
because there's a comfort to that, right?
Yeah, it's all comfort food.
Yep.
Yeah,
it tastes good. It's like, you know what, or this can't happen to me.
Right.
Like denial almost.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I've always been one to been able to deny things, so it just was not on my part, and it wasn't fair to my wife, that I was letting myself get that way, and she's stuck with me, and even through thick and thin, and love her to death. But and you know, even today, I still have relatives who are in danger from the different genetic deficiencies that we seem to have.
Sure.
And so a year ago, I just decided that, you know, I've been thinking about this all my life and not doing anything about it, and I'm going to start working at it. And I think the biggest thing that I did was to start investigating health and nutrition.
Education.
And I was amazed at the things that we've been told over our lifetime as far as what is healthy and what is not, and how to do this and how to do that. And they have many things on the internet now that you can easily research. The problem with it is that you'll have one expert say one thing and another expert
contradict it.
Totally opposite. And so what's the answer? And I think that you have to just keep researching. You have to try things and see what works for you. I found several things that I was happy with and several things that were hard, but you know, I was willing to do it to try and change my life.
So trial and error on when you
I
put the food in your mouth.
still go through that. I still,
it's a journey.
You know, I'll hear about this and let's see, maybe I'll try that and see how it works, you know, if I see any difference, or how it makes me feel or look or whatever. And so I have been reading and looking at things on the internet and trying different things. And there's several things that for me work for me. And I think it's important that a person understands that each one of us has a different body chemistry.
Yes.
And what works for one person may not work for another person.
Yes.
But you have to experiment, possibly is a word, to try and find out what it is that does work for you, and take it seriously.
There's no magic pill, is there?
There is no magic pill, but everybody swears by this, that, and the other thing, and you just have to find out, well, does this really work for me? Keep an eye on what's happening with my weight and my blood pressure and my diabetes and this type of thing, and see how that's affecting, you know, if I make a change, how does that affect the other things, you know? And so I've come up with a few things that I do that I found to be effective for me, and I continue to do that, but I also am willing to try new things also to see.
So what has worked for you?
Well, number one was intermittent fasting.
Yes.
And I was always a big breakfast guy. Well, we were told the most important meal of the day.
And you know where that slogan came from?
Not exactly sure.
So it was John Kellogg, and he was the one that created that slogan way back then to promote his cereals. Yeah.
Well, this is the capitalist system, and I'm a capitalist, you know.
Absolutely.
And I always taught it in my classrooms, you know. But yeah, there's a lot of things. Even getting the government to, you know, say certain things as far as you know, what's healthy and what's not, and this type of thing, and having the important things in a diet and this type of thing. Well, it just depends on you know, who's contributing to your campaign, you know, to get elected and stuff like that.
It's a thing.
Right.
Yes.
And so there's a lot of stuff out there that just is out and out lies, and there's other stuff that's mistakes. And I can forgive the mistakes, you know, I can't forgive the lying.
Yeah, I know.
But
it's hard. It's hard when you start diving into it.
Yes.
And you start understanding who's behind the studies.
Right. And so with the intermittent fasting, that was the first thing that I wanted to try. And being a breakfast person, that was one of the hardest things. You know, I was a pancakes, cinnamon roll, orange juice type of guy, you know, and
lots of refined sugar in that.
Tons.
Yes.
You know, and flour.
Yep, white flour.
And
yes.
And the other part of it is not when my wife was making it, but when I'd buy it in the grocery store or at a fast food place, a restaurant, this type of stuff. The stuff that you're generally given is not necessarily what's healthy for you, you know.
It's not.
And
no.
and what have we become? The fast food society.
Yes.
Well, fast usually means
processed,
dangerous to me now, and so I've kind of totally gotten away from that, and it's hard. Another thing, as being an educator, is school lunches, and school lunches are generally carbohydrate rich.
I know.
And
Don't
that
even
type
get
of-
me started on that. I know it's.
And I'm talking school lunches not for first grade through 12th.
Yeah.
I'm talking about since I was 6 years old to now.
Yes.
I'm still working in schools and this type of thing.
Isn't it amazing though how you educated yourself and you're starting to realize and inadequacies of the food nutrients and that we're not giving our bodies to thrive.
Right.
So we have these chronic conditions,
Right.
But it took you an intentional mindset to start.
Right.
I mean, you're like, okay, I need to do this.
Right.
Because that's not easy. Losing 100 pounds is not easy.
No.
And that is an amazing discipline.
Yes.
How did you get there?
Well, let me explain one thing. From all my life, I've had health problems. I got polio when I was 1 year old in my left leg. And I had come from a family of athletes. My mother was an athlete, my father was an athlete. I mean, I'm talking Division I level type people.
I did not know that.
And so for me to get something like polio and that type of thing was a kind of a disappointment. And but I didn't let it affect me. I was always the slowest guy on my football team, but if I caught you, I'd beat you up. So they put me right in the middle and focused everything into there, you know, and I could handle that, you know, stuff. And I was a starter on a Class A state championship football team, you know, and it just became something that I had to deal with. I still have to deal with it today. You know, it's something that you're wounded for life with something like that, you know.
Sure.
And so as far as, but I also became a swimmer. I was a state level swimmer. I went to state, swim meet.
So you overcame it. I mean, you had a weakness and you overcame it.
Right, and that taught me, you know, number one, that I could overcome a weakness or something like that. Mm-hmm. And then, and so I became a kind of a stubborn person. And yeah. And you know, and I'm talking about the 50s and 60s, you know, growing up in that athletic atmosphere, and it was tough. They were very tough on you. But anyway, I became a coach, and I was a coach for over 40 years, an active coach. And whenever I moved,
coach.
Well, thank you. But whenever I moved, it was for my coaching. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't necessarily that I wanted to be a teacher, but then the other thing that I was founded my life on was a love of history. And so I eventually became a history major in college, a history teacher, and it seems like they always combine the coaching with the social studies a lot of times. And so I would, when I did move, I would move in that direction. But I learned a lot of things from watching wrestlers. Wrestlers are always weight conscious.
Sure.
They have weight classifications and this type of thing. And so I watched some of the stuff they did and what was good and what was bad, and learned from that, and then talking to other coaches. And I got these ideas, and I had actually experimented with it when I was young, when I was a teenager, and I found out I lost weight by really concentrating more on protein and skipping breakfast and that. And I actually would skip lunch too and just eat
in a time eating window.
Yeah, in the evenings.
Yeah. And
I found that I would lose weight, but that kind of got out of mind, and then it just.
But it came back.
The pounds accumulated, that type of thing. So yes, now a lot of the things that I found out from these things got backed up. There's one particular physician that came from Omaha originally, and he's very popular on the internet now. But he's determined that a lot of stuff has to do with our intestinal system and that type of thing.
Our gut, yes.
Our gut, and a lot of stuff that we eat damage our gut.
Yes, the micronutrients, yes.
And that type of thing. And so I learned a lot from just him, but you have to find out if there's other people backing this. And another thing you have to be careful with with the internet is a lot of times people are selling a product. And
Yes.
so it may be the absolute truth, it may be the absolute best thing, but you have to understand, you know, there's also
What's their intention?
a commercial motivation, so you have to be careful. So, but one of the top guys that I found out about on that was basically originated in Omaha, and you know, he's a world-class physician now, and he's spreading the idea that you know what you eat is
Toxic.
that.
It
And,
can
and the other thing is that being a history teacher, you kind of look back and said, well, what did people originally eat? And let's take just the Native Americans, you know, that lived in Nebraska. What did they eat? You know, they ate meat. They ate fat.
Healthy fat.
Healthy fat.
Yes.
I mean, you know, animal fat that's part of the meat, you know, and that our bodies for over 1 million years,
Yes.
that's what we fed them, and that's what the human body was designed to live on.
Correct.
And then we invented farming.
Yes. Industrialism. Yep.
And so a lot of the stuff that we started eating, if you even look at the Native Americans, they became civilized down in Mexico and South America and this type of stuff, and even in North America some places. And civilization depends on farming.
Yes.
You can't go out, you can't be a hunter and be civilized. you got to have, you know, more coming in.
Yes.
And so civilization has really actually kind of lowered our life expectancies and that type of thing because of the type of food we eat and that type of thing. And so I just looking at that as a history guy, I thought, you know,
It's fascinating, isn't it?
yeah, it is. And you know, and you get the paleo. That paleo refers back to Paleolithic, which means the old Stone Age. It means cavemen.
Yeah.
You know, and there's other things, you know, like that. And but I learned basically that grains are not really very good for us for the most part.
Unfortunately,
Yeah.
the way we process them
Yeah,
has
and that-
damaged the nutrients.
And interestingly enough, I'm a corn husker fan, you know. and that type of thing. But you know, they have their place, but they shouldn't be the main staple that we live on.
Agreed. Agreed.
And
so I'm just going to go back to your intermittent fasting. So,
Okay.
because I am big into fasting, and it's kind of like what my expertise is
Yeah.
in, and I think it is a must for human beings, as you said, because history presents itself. Our bodies were designed to survive during the starvation mode, and our bodies were designed that. That's where all the healing properties come out, but we
Right.
don't live like that anymore. We
Right.
live at a 24/7 consuming food all the time.
Right.
I mean, it's around us, like you said.
Right.
Fast food is very dangerous,
Right.
and it's interesting. So you must have done some research and said, okay, you know what, I'm going to skip breakfast, or you went back and said, you know what, this kind of worked for me when I was in college.
right, and it isn't necessarily the time that you do it, but the amount of time that you
Yes.
spend in fasting.
Yes.
I chose to skip breakfast.
And when did you stop eating dinner?
I stop around 6
Okay.
to 7.
So you had about a 16-hour fasting window
Had
where
about,
you didn't eat?
it's about 16-hour fasting. And I generally have my largest meal around noon. And then I'll have a smaller meal, basically a large salad and some meat in the evening, and go from there. And that's, you know, I've gotten into spices a lot.
Yes.
I do a lot of spices. I go and I buy them cheap at there's places here in town that
Yep.
have people from other countries, and they, you know.
Well, and that's what seems to happen when individuals start entering into this health space, because it's very different. You have to research it. It's not there in front of you to easily grab.
Right.
But it seems like that's where, like, oh my gosh, I need to start my own flavoring my food, and so that's when you step into the spices, and then that just opens up a whole nother world.
Right.
And
and being a history teacher, there's other things too, but a lot of modern civilization was based on the desire for spices.
Sure.
Christopher Columbus was trying to find a shortcut to India. That's why he went the other way. Everybody was going down around Africa to try to get to India, you know, which took years. And Magellan took 5 years. He didn't even make it. He got killed in the Philippines. But when he had 5 ships when he started, and the last ship made it to Spain, it was loaded with cloves.
Interesting.
And the cloves sold for more than their weight in gold.
Oh my gosh.
So even, we're talking 500 years ago, people were desiring these spices. And so I think they're important, and we found, you can go on the internet and find the nutritional values of different spices and that type of thing. Cinnamon is
amazing,
amazing spice, you know, but you have to be kind of careful where it comes from. And also the ancient Greeks, they call olive oil the elixir of life. You know, so I always drink a little shot of olive oil in the morning.
Good for you. That's great.
And, but I have to drink something else. It's bitter, you know, and a lot of this stuff doesn't taste good, but you got to make a choice and have a way to either mask the taste or something like that, you know.
But don't mask it with sugar.
No. Yeah, and I found that just reading and looking into something else, I started reading the ingredients on the stuff that I was eating.
Yes.
It's amazing, you know. And I was just looking at one this morning. I was going to bring an example of a little snack bar that I put in I take my lunches now to school. I don't eat school lunches.
Well, you can't. You know, I mean.
Yeah, and the one that I eat is mostly made out of apples and almonds and stuff like that. Then I had another one that says sweet and salty. It's got that right on the label. It's called the sweet and salty bar.
Yeah.
You're talking about sugar and salt.
Yep.
And I heard a guy once say, "Don't eat anything white."
Yeah.
You know that, but also see, there's another discrepancy here, in that we're being taught to eat whole grain oats or whole grain grains.
Yes.
And there's a lot of stuff in the grain that damages your gut. Yes. You know, that's the whole grain. You know, it's dangerous. And so just here and there, I'm picking up little things. But with the intermittent fasting, I've been very strict with it, and I have some old teaching friends. I'll go out and eat breakfast with them once a month.
Yeah.
You know, but then I'm very careful on what I order for breakfast. I used to have the pancakes and the hash browns and all that.
But that's the balance, right?
Yeah.
So it doesn't have to be all or nothing.
Right, and I can, you know, I'll take a cookie, one of my wife's cookies instead of 6.
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
and I won't do that every day. I'll do that maybe once a week.
And but you really relish it. And
you're
like, this is an amazing.
Right.
And so you're telling your body, this is great.
And she's got her own recipe, and people rave over that. I said we should start a bakery, probably, you know. But anyway.
So how do you stop? Like, how did you teach yourself to stop just at one cookie?
Looking in the mirror.
Okay.
You know, and looking at photographs of myself over the years.
Oh, okay.
I had a photograph out in Colorado where I was with my family, with my son and his family, and we were on top of Pikes Peak, and when took him up there, and I was so obese that I just was amazed.
So the picture.
But I still didn't do anything about it.
Yeah.
You know, and so I just lived with it, you know, and I'm amazed that my wife was willing to stay with me through that, and that type of thing, and. It's just that I finally was so disgusted by myself that I wanted to make a change.
Yeah.
And so I started with the intermittent fasting, and then I made other things that I tried out, the olive oil every day. Another thing that I drink every day is apple cider vinegar.
Yeah,
you know,
I do too.
And that's terrible tasting. And so I actually put some lemon juice with it, and
sometimes if you put in sparkling water.
I do.
Like a mineral water, that helps too.
Yeah, I do that to dilute the.
Yeah.
It's diluted. I still get the same amount.
Yeah.
But the taste is diluted.
Yes, correct.
But
it's really good for your gut.
Oh yeah, it's great. You know, and so I do that every day. I take, I've got food supplements that I've taken all my life that I believe in, that, they don't have anything to do with my weight, but they do have to do with other parts of my health, and this type of thing.
Well, we are almost running out of time, but I would love for you to, like, if somebody is looking to lose weight and they just don't know where to start, what advice can you give them?
Number one, don't go so much by the weight scale.
Yeah, toss that puppy out.
Eat one thing, that stays in there a week, another thing goes right, you don't know how much is building up in your body, how much water is building up in your body, this type of thing. I go by my belt and what's happening with my belt.
Or measuring, sometimes a little measuring tape.
Yeah, but I put a belt on every day,
Yeah.
And I lost 9 inches on my waist.
Wow, that's fantastic.
And so that was a measure that I go more by now.
Yeah.
I'll step on a scale once in a while just to see how things are
Sure,
going.
absolutely.
I did lose 100 pounds, but I plan on losing more. I'm still not where I want to be.
But it's a process and a journey, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
It's not an overnight thing, and it's not a quick fix.
Right, and but it's something that the hardest part is once you start doing is not to give up and go back to your old evil ways.
Kind of like as we remember a football coach would tell their football players, do not give up.
Yeah, right.
Charge ahead, get the gut and the glory.
Right,
yes.
Right. And I found being a football coach that one kid I got a pat on the bottom, the other one I got a kick on the bottom, that we're all motivated in different ways.
And then you have to look at yourself in the mirror, and you need to figure out that for yourself.
What motivates you?
Yep, absolutely. Well, Ron, it has been a pleasure. Thank you so much for coming today.
Well, it's been
what a joy.
My pleasure also.
And I'm excited to share it with the community. Thank you so much.
You bet. Great.